It is time to become a card farming master. Welcome back to Corky Gachas, and in this video I'm going to share with you guys my personal card farming strategy, how I target the cards, and this can also help you guys in deciding what cards you are going to farm based on all the information that you might not know previously. And the reason why I wanted to make this video right now is also because I've been getting quite a bit of questions since the double card drop event has been running for a couple of days already, right? So it's going to go until the 3rd of July, which is quite a long time honestly for farming cards. So with this event itself, a lot of people have more queries about card farming, in particular what you should farm, etc. And if you guys have known what I was doing, right, my strategy, you watch my videos, you know that I'm currently using all my combat time to farm cards only, and I was previously farming the Goblin Steam Rider, and here you can notice 0.3% because I very luckily got my Goblin Steam Rider card during combat time at 85% PT. Okay, it was really a PT that I got it at such a high PT, but regardless, I still got the card, so that's the most important thing. So with this event itself, I do think that it would be better for you guys to go on the route of using combat time to farm for cards simply because of rested EXP. You're going to get overall less EXP, don't get me wrong, if you farm your optimized spot. However, the EXP is not going to lag behind that much, and if you have people in your guild that are over leveling, they are doing their story quests, etc., you would have them to teach you, so you can alleviate the problem of you lagging behind too much, right? So that was how I was coping with this situation, and I did get a cut out of it. And if you guys don't want to lag too much, right, I would say that you can prioritize farming in spots whereby they already drop good cards, right? What do I mean by good cards? You know, those purple cards that have certain amounts of value. If you are like farming in Pasana, if you are farming like Maduk at the same spot, right, then it might be a bit more incentivized because they're high level monsters. You wouldn't sacrifice as much on the EXP front, and you are still able to get a decent card, right? Especially for the upcoming Constellation Tower. So armor cards are going to be very relevant. So this is what I would recommend. Go find the cards that you want to farm, and also at the same time it provides decent EXP. For me personally, I don't care at all. I just want to farm the cards I want, which is why I chose the Goblin Steam Rider. So this one is just my recommendations. Definitely make use of this time to spend your combat time on prioritizing a bit more on cards. So the next question I get asked a lot is, what card should I be farming as a paladin, as a sniper, etc. And some of you guys might think, hey, this is a no-brainer, right? Of course we are going to farm the cards that is going to give the most Zenny if I'm going to sell for Zenny, or the most expensive card. However, I'm here to tell you that this is not exactly always the case, because all cards have different drop rates. I'm sure you guys already know by now that within the green cards, within the blue cards, and within the purple cards, right, the drop rates are different. You are going to very easily get a green card if you farm on those. You know what I'm talking about. And then blue cards slightly more difficult, and then followed by the purple cards. However, even within the tier of cards that they are like within themselves, right? So within a Skeleton Worker card, Minerals card versus something like a Goblin Steam Rider card, like a Pasana card, there are also different drop rates. And from what I can tell, I don't have exact rates, right? I can tell that the drop rate difference is definitely more than 2 times harder for cards like a Skeleton Worker versus like a Pasana versus other cards that are of a lower purple tier, right? So I think that it's completely fine for you guys to even farm the blue cards, especially if those blue cards, right, are very difficult to snatch in the auction house. Especially for paladins, you guys know we need the Hunter Fly card to sustain, and this card itself, yesterday night there was 3 of them. I remember I was spamming click like a insane lunatic, right? Still couldn't get even 1 card. So if you really want to farm for the cards that it's hard to get, there is not that much difference because of the drop rate differences. You are still going to be somewhat the same, right, for against you like farming a purple card that you need. However, the next one that I'm going to talk about is about cards that you are farming whereby you need and they are above the selling cap. So what do I mean by that? So taking the Skeleton Worker, or taking some of the more rare purple cards, for instance, right? If I just type over here Skeleton Worker, so you can see Skeleton Worker card over here. This card, you know that for in the auction house, it is selling sometimes, depending on your server, right? In my server, it's selling like 2 million, 1.8 million. But the selling cap, if you sell it to the black market, is only 600k. So if you don't need this card for yourself and you were to farm this just because of Zenny, so that you can say, oh, if I farm a Skeleton Worker card, I can sell it for 600k Zenny, I can buy 2 of the Pasana. That means I can buy a Pasana and then maybe a Donkerby or Swordfish. It will be worth it. It will not be worth it because the rates of you getting the Skeleton Worker card is going to be at least 2 times harder. I think it's more than 2 times, maybe 3 times or 4 times harder to obtain, right? Just based on the card PT progression. That is what I'm based on judging the drop rate. So I think that it's not going to be worth it. It is going to be worth it, however, if you're going to use it for yourself. So for Sacrifice Paladin, we don't need Skeleton Worker card, which is why you see that I'm not actually farming skeleton worker card at all. It's just going to be worth 600k Zenny, but it's much more efficient for me to farm 2 of the other cards that I need. Now moving on, next I'm going to talk about the true drop rate. So what do I mean by a true drop rate? So like I mentioned just now, right, within a similar tier of cards, right, they would have their own tiering, their own drop rates, and from what I can judge, right, I only based off their selling prices in the auction house, their starting selling prices. So you can see that in the auction house over here, right, if I were to go into auction, you can see that these are 150k starting cards, and then there are some of the 120k starting price cards. So I would say that these are in the similar drop range for the purple cards, and then for the blue cards itself, for the green cards, they also have different selling prices. If you have bought or sold cards, you know what I'm talking about, right? Different cards have different rates, so they would have different drop rate based on this. This is how I based it on. I'm not sure if it's exactly true, so take it with a grain of salt. Regardless, this is not what I consider their true drop rate, because there is difference in farming efficiency. So you can see right here using this example, this is where I was previously farming. I was farming a 3 spawn on the Goblin Steam Rider as well as a 3 spawn on the Dagger, or I think it's the X, the Goblin. If you were to compare this to me farming in Pasana, whereby I'm going to deal much less damage and definitely not able to one-hit KO those mobs, right, the efficiency is different despite them having the same drop rate. So if I can only kill like 1 Pasana every 1 second versus I can kill 3 Goblin Steam Riders every 1 second, it is a 3 times drop rate effectively, right? So definitely try to farm the mobs that you have maximum farming efficiency for. Of course, I know that sometimes the cards that you need aren't in that range, but I'm going to touch on this later. So try to prioritize cards whereby you are able to find good farming spots. Like for me, with my Shoe Boomerang bouncing, right, this is the best spot that I can find for farming. If you're a gravitational field wizard, definitely you want to be standing in the middle of 3 spots and then casting gravitational field on all 3 spots. And if you're a hunter, you can even farm solo spots. So different jobs have different farming efficiencies and farming strategies. So that one I'm not going to touch in this video, but just try to find the one that you have the maximum effective drop rate for, so you can make full use of your combat time or your monster annihilation time. Now at this point, you guys might have another query in your head. Hey Koki, you say that you should farm the one with max efficiency, right? So as you can see right here, I'm farming with quite good efficiency, right? So what am I doing with my combat time now? Why is my Goblin Steam Rider card only at 0.3%? Why don't I continue to farm for the second one, since I really need to max awaken the card anyways, right? So what I can tell you guys is that despite the fact that there is no mentions of this system anywhere, right, there is decreased drop rate for your second card. So once your first card has dropped, you naturally farm it, right? There is a decrease in drop rate from what I've noticed and from what multiple people have tested, including me, right? The results all point to one thing: the drop rate is decreased after you farm the first card. However, I'm not able to pinpoint how much it has dropped, but I have searched forums like Taiwan's server forums, and what someone have claimed and quote unquote tested, right, I cannot confirm this whether this is entirely true, but take it with a grain of salt, is that the formula for the first one or the first cut is just like 1% is 1%. For the second cut is dependent on what PT rate you got your first cut at. So for my example, I got it at 85%. It's going to be 1 divided by 1 plus the 1 minus of the percentage that I got it from, which is 0.85, and then that would bring us to 1 divided by 1.15. So a bit of a math class over here, 1 divided by 1.15. So it comes out to roughly 0.87% efficiency, meaning that for every 1% that progressed in the first cut, the second cut is only going to progress at 0.87%. So it's going to be slower based on the PT rate. So if you got it extremely fast, you got it at 1%, then your second cut is going to drop extremely slowly. It's going to progress extremely slowly. I'm not sure if this is correct, and I haven't tested it with my Goblin Steam Rider card, so I cannot confirm. Take it with a grain of salt. So with that in mind, we all know that it's going to decrease, right? But not knowing at what rate is going to be a bit of a puzzling thing that we have to figure out. However, I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm going to farm slower, which is why I moved on to aggro, which I have a bit slower efficiency, but I'm farming a spot with 4 aggro, so it kind of balances out in my opinion. So I think that it's going to be fine, and as you can see, it's already up to 27.6%. So my advice is, once you have farmed the first card for the card that you need, move on to another card that you need, provided there is not a drastic decrease in efficiency. So if your first card is super efficient, your spot is super efficient, second card that you're looking at super inefficient, and then the prices are the same, I don't think that is going to be worth it. Which brings me to my next point. What can you do alternatively? Alternatively, you can farm for Zenny. So you can farm a card that you don't need for Zenny just to sell it in the black market, and then you can get the money to beat the card that you need. So in my case, once I've gotten my first Goblin Steam Rider card, I can move on to farm maybe Goblin Archer card, right? And then I would sell Goblin Archer card in the black market to buy the Goblin Steam Rider card if I really need it, right? But the fact is that I still need aggro cards, I still need armor cards, which is why I move on to aggro cards. So this is just an alternative for people that are looking to farm for Zenny. I will never ever recommend for you guys to farm Skeleton Worker card, Minerals card, Hydra cards, even Terraform card. I think they're all the same drop rate. So all these 4 cards, I would not recommend for you guys to farm to sell for 600k so they can buy other cards. Unless you're super lucky, you tell me, hey, Cocky, I got a Hydra card at 1%, I got the Minerals card at 10%. Oh, that is nothing that I have a part of because my account is very unlucky. So I cannot vouch for a strategy like this. It's only based on statistics. I would say that avoid farming those cards for Zenny. Only if you really need it, farm those cards. Otherwise, farm similar prices cards with similar drop rates in their same tier, and then you can buy the other card instead of farming again this Goblin Steam Rider card, whereby the card drop is going to be penalized given that you have already obtained this card once. And finally, before I end, I've also been asked quite a bit by people about the Lucky Candy once again, although I've made a video on this already, whether you should use your Lucky Candy during Monster Annihilation, and I can tell you that I am not using my Lucky Candy during Monster Annihilation. There is no difference based on my test. People might disagree and say that there are differences during their farming sessions. I would blame that more on variance than it is on actual effect of the Lucky Candy, because if you were to cut down the farming time, right, you will be able to notice little variance, and hence the results are going to be more synonymous between the tests. And I find that to be a lot more accurate than if you prolong the farming period and introduce a lot of variance. So this is just me personally. You guys can continue to farm using Lucky Candy. It is really up to you. I only use Lucky Candy if I'm farming monsters that I'm at least getting 50% or 70% materials for, because Lucky Candy is for materials in my honest opinion. And that about does it for this video where I cover the hot topic of card drop and my personal farming strategy for cards. This is what I've known. This is my opinion. You can choose to believe, you can choose not to believe. It is up to you, but I hope that some people do benefit from this. Also, if you guys are interested in seeing the new #1 raffle event, right, what is the best strategy for it when the prize pool refreshes in 2 days, right? I think it's 2 days, 29th of June. Definitely check out this video over here. I'll see you guys over there. This is Cocky Gachas signing off.